soup? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today. With me I have some more RPG horror stories. I don't know if anybody does the whole like April Fool's, April Fool's prank, but I've honestly kind of lucked out this time around. I haven't seen anything at all. I literally just spent time playing games with Mary and then watching anime with Mary, and that's about it. And I've literally seen nothing at all. If you got pranked for April 1st or April Fool's, please let me know how bad it was and what was your reaction down in the comments below. I'm gonna get to the first RPG horror story for today. I accidentally blew up my partner's D&D group. Important context, I'm a trans man. My partner is non-binary but presents as their birth gender and generally doesn't mind if people refer to them in masculine terms, but they do prefer gender-neutral terms. My partner's last boyfriend was also trans. We live in the United States in a very conservative state. So when I started dating my partner, they introduced me to the D&D group consisting of, fake names obviously, Sven, Bob, Justin, Gabby, and Matt. Sven hosting at his house and my partner was providing transportation for Matt and Bob. Some of these names don't look like the others, some of these names sound very Swedish, so I'm assuming maybe that person has some sort of Swedish ties. I could be completely guessing, honestly, I have no idea, but let's continue. Gabby and Justin live together, and Justin drives the two of them. The group was meeting every other Saturday and every week on either Tuesday or Thursday due to my partner's work schedule. Due to meeting so often, they had several games running concurrently with different DMs. At the time I met them, my partner and Sven were taking turns DMing. One day during a break, Bob started talking about Pathfinder. I'd done a one-shot on Pathfinder, but my previous group had dissolved due to scheduling conflicts before we got to go to the full campaign. I'd really liked the system, so I talked about my limited experience, and between me and Bob, we got the group excited to try Pathfinder. Bob enthusiastically volunteered to run a game for us, since he had the most experience with the system. Anytime a group is learning a new system, it's reasonable to expect questions and the table moving a bit slower, but there still needs to be some semblance of table etiquette. There were a few times when my turn in combat would be interrupted or delayed by someone else asking complex questions about how their abilities worked, with multiple follow-up questions. A couple of times, this would have resulted in part or all of a turn being skipped if it hadn't spoken up about it. Oh yeah, that can happen a lot, even happens at my table as well, and I understand if players want to have like a question about how their abilities worked and stuff, but the least they could do is maybe wait until it's their turn to ask the question, or, you know, maybe ask off session or something, but if some sort of clarification is needed, at least let the player finish their turn first before asking the question, you know? Like if it was an ability that was just activated or just used and stuff, that's one thing. But if it's like about an ability that haven't even used at all, then you're gonna have to wait, but we're gonna get the turn for this player done and then we'll get to your question. Anyway, let's continue. Something like this happened once or twice isn't a big deal, but it was happening every session and Bob was just allowing it. He would acknowledge that it was my turn, Sven would ask a question about one of his abilities, and then talk for 10 to 20 minutes before I could do anything. Okay, that sounds absurd. Other times we'd be doing downtime activities, and Bob would start going about the table, asking what people were doing for their downtime. He'd get to me, and Justin would loudly announce what he wanted to do before I had a chance to speak. Bob would then work with Justin to resolve his downtime activity, and it was 50-50 whether he'd come back to me or not. I had to remind him that I existed. While I understand that part of the issue was the other people interrupting, I firmly believe that maintaining table etiquette is the job of the DM/GM. Since Bob was actively participating in the poor table etiquette by enabling these interruptions rather than telling people to wait their turn, I chose to address it with Bob directly. After the game, I sent him a message over Discord outlining the issue, giving specific examples from the game session, letting him know that it was making me not enjoy the game because I felt talked over and ignored. Then I went to bed because I had to work next day. We'll continue this, but I got a question. Have you considered speaking up for yourself? Yeah, like say for example, I don't know, let's say this recent example, right? Everybody's talking about downtime activities and you just started your sentence and Justin came up and started talking about their stuff. Hey, Justin, I know you're cool, but can I get through my stuff first, man? Yes, it should be up to the DM to set up the etiquette and stuff, but I feel like Bob is probably playing kind of like a helpful DM and he's probably thinking to himself, like, I don't think he's doing it maliciously maliciously just to try to ignore you or anything, but I think he's trying to just be very helpful, but he's not considering the fact that maybe, you know, each player should take a turn. He's like a golden retriever, ready to help out at a moment's notice, but is not really good at managing, making sure that everybody takes a turn and stuff so well. A little bit too eager to help in a sense, without being like a manager in particular. Which, yes, DMs can be difficult like that, and I sometimes get like that as well. I need my players to help me out to make sure that things are keeping like on track and keeping things at pace and stuff, because sometimes things can get a little bit weird, a little bit strange and stuff, like, especially if you're trying, a lot of things going on in a session, or it's just very overwhelming, or new players are present and stuff. Sometimes DMs need your help. DMs are people too, they're not perfect, and I've done so many mistakes myself personally, and I need sometimes my players to help keep things up pace in case I somehow lose the pacing of it. Or, you know, speaking up if something is going on or something is happening over the table that needs to be addressed, they need to be fixed up, then maybe I'm allowing some things to go a little bit too lax for no reason because I'm just not paying attention, or I'm paying attention to one thing particular instead of the other thing that is kind of taking priority. I'm not gonna say that your DM is doing it maliciously and stuff, but let's continue with the story. Bob went ballistic. I woke up to multiple messages from him. First one was saying how bad he felt that I was feeling that way and saying he didn't want anyone at his table to feel ignored. Next message was criticizing me for how I addressed it. He said I should have spoken up at the table. Message him after felt like an attack. Next few were talking about how he was so much trauma and PTSD from past experiences, and I should have given him more grace, accusing him of ignoring him, and tell him that he was physically ill and unable to sleep until the issue could be resolved. Messaged him back to clarify that my intention wasn't to attack, just to make him aware of the situation, and it was up to him how he wanted to address it. I even told him that he didn't have to do anything, that I'd accept suck it up and deal as a viable answer. Okay, I could be in a minority here. And the comments will probably disagree with me if you guys disagree with me. However, dare I say, you saying that, especially the last bit, comes off a little bit, I can't tell if it comes off more passive-aggressive or antagonistic, or maybe a mixture of both. If there's an issue where you need to tell your DM what is going on and something needs to be like addressed or kept in mind for the future, I would think you want to do it in a more constructive, productive manner, not some sort of accusatory manner. But with Bob's reaction being this reaction, I mean, unless we see the message, I don't know specifically like what you specifically wrote. Were you accusing Bob of doing something like the unthinkable, unspeakable, and couldn't be forgivable and stuff? Or were you reasonable as well, and maybe Bob just overreacted? Unless we see the message, we really don't know. Your last part specifically, that kind of makes me feel a little bit confused, just a tiny bit, is the way you worded last part. That you wanted to clarify your intention wasn't to attack, just to make him aware of the situation, and it was up to him how he wanted to address it. What does that mean specifically? Because I don't know, maybe I'm just overreading it, maybe I'm just overthinking it, but if there's an issue, you state the issue, you talk to the DM how it could be addressed, the DM gives the own operation, and it's like a communication back and forth, not like you lopping something towards the DM and waiting for him to get a response or something, right? But two people are needed. If there's an issue between two people, both people need to make sure they're cooperating about this stuff, the DM and you. So like, what exactly did you write? Because right now I'm thinking there's two realities. Either one, you did go a little bit too ham on your DM and they're freaking out because they're genuinely worried and scared, they're messed up really badly and have really bad self-esteem and bad anxiety. Or two, you said it in a reasonable way and Bob was overreacting. Which one it is, I don't know. And honestly, it's really difficult to tell right now. He sent more messages, still emphasizing his own mental health issues, the physical effects that was having on his body, and more criticism of how I handled confrontation. Specifically, he brought up a past argument we had regarding his treatment of trans people, an argument that I had thought was resolved that had absolutely no bearing on the current conflict. So for the sake of context, here's that. I have a TikTok account. I use it pretty much as a screaming into the void outlet. I do talk about people in my personal life. I don't have a huge following, less than 5,000. How to give identifying information. How to give location information. I even occasionally switch up nicknames, so if someone who knows someone I'm talking about stumbles upon it, that would make it even harder to track who I'm talking about. I talked on TikTok about Bob, specifically how he only refers to my partner's trans man ex-boyfriend with they-them pronouns. My partner's ex exclusively uses he, him. I had said that it bothers me because Bob talks about how my partner's ex was terrible and obviously hates the guy. It makes me think that Bob only supports trans people he likes. I feel like we open up a can of worms right now. Genuinely, I have no idea how to respond to it, and it still continues, and I skimmed just a little bit, and oh my, this is a lot to handle. Degendering is a form of misgendering, so it is transphobia. A soft transphobia, but transphobia nonetheless. Bob found the video and we talked it out. Bob had tried to calm that he uses they them for everyone, but I called him out on the lie because he never uses they them for anyone, not even a partner who actually likes they them. Bob finally agreed that he was only using it for certain people, and he said he'll do better. Later on, I heard him use they them for me. I exclusively use he him. Bob knows this. I just corrected him and moved on, but now I know that he simply doesn't see trans people as their gender. You know what? I have to be honest. I just don't see it. I have to be honest. I genuinely don't see it. And mainly because I have a lot of people that I know from VR chat in my friend circles, Mary's friend circles, and my friends of friends friend circles that are also trans. And the point of using they them for anybody, regardless of how they identified themselves as, I mean, I don't know, is that really like transphobic to use they them on somebody that you are unsure? So therefore you go with a more neutral term because you're trying to be accepting and welcoming and supporting and stuff, to make sure you're not being inoffensive and using something that's a safe I guess pronoun because you don't want to be so trying to be inoffensive means you're being offensive. That's because maybe I'm not knowledgeable about this specific topic, nor do I have the equipment or capacity or the right reasoning to be able to navigate this specific matter. Maybe potentially, or it could be that maybe you're just blasting your friend out to a bunch of internet nobodies and stuff and saying that because your friend is trying to be inclusive, they actually not being inclusive and therefore bigot. I don't know the capacity behind this. Is just, this is a lot for a dumb tiefling to handle a rodeo on his own side. I honestly don't know what's happening. I don't know, man. Like if I'm not sure what sort of pronoun somebody prefers usage, regardless of the identity and stuff, sometimes I'm just going to default to a they or them because I don't know. Sometimes just defaults just naturally because it's just like, I don't know, I just don't think about it. It just sort of just comes out. I say, oh, they're over there. Oh yeah, we're talking about them or we're talking to them, and it just kind of comes out. I don't even think about it. It doesn't even click to me at all. I don't know. Am I being transphobic by using they them instead of their preferred pronouns, instead of staying on a more safe neutral line? It's one of those things. It's one of those matters that I gotta be honest, sometimes you're not sure how to navigate it, so you're going with the most safest possible option or trying to go with the option that everybody else is going with because you don't want to come off as, bigoted. But in fact, when you try and not come off as some sort of a bigot or trying to come off as somebody understanding or inclusive or in any way accepting of anybody, whoever they are, you instead are blamed for being offending, even though you're doing the opposite. It's oh my god, my brain is breaking in real time because I don't know if your friend is actually being the a-hole or you're being the a-hole by accusing your friend or supposedly your friend, your DM, of being the a-hole when they're in fact trying to be inclusive and understanding. And well, like where's the line here? Where is the line that is drawn? Because I am confused and lost. Okay, it's one thing. Let's say, for example, if you identify as a he, him, or she, her, or they, them, or whatever else you decide to identify, dumb tiefling, that's my identification. You better use it in the comments or else I'll get mad, you bigot. But also I feel like it's kind of unfair to get offended at somebody for trying to be gender neutral and using the they, them neutral safe option because they're trying to not be offensive, or maybe they're not sure, or maybe they forgot, or maybe they don't know, or maybe just kind of defaulted on it. Like Mary addresses a lot of people as they, them, whenever we like talking, about our day and stuff, or about somebody that she knows from the Archer community. Does that make Mary a bigot? Does Mary come off as a bigot for wanting to just use they, them because she just wants to be inclusive and just be nice and stuff? Is that makes Mary into a bigot? Am I a bigot for using a they, them? Is Michael a bigot for using a they? Like everybody that I know, like at some point, in some capacity, uses it and we don't even think about it. People even address me as they, them, and that's okay. I don't even find it offensive in the slightest. I'm just happy to be included in the conversation. Does that mean that people are being a bigot against me? Even though I see myself as a he, him, are people being bigoted against me and I just don't know what bigotry is? This is a very confusing post and I feel like we're opening up a massive can of worms, so let's continue forward with everything that we got so far. Back to the main story. Bob kept blowing up my Discord messages trying to guilt trip me for daring to have an issue, even going as far to say that now he's lost all motivation to even run the game. He was thinking of canceling the game. He didn't think he was cut out to DM and claiming that he'd been pressured into running the game in the first place, which was very much not true. He was the one who brought up Pathfinder and volunteered to run the game so we could try the system. I kept emphasizing that I'd never meant to make him feel bad, just that I didn't want to be holding on to negative feelings without expressing them, that he can't address an issue he doesn't know about, and he was welcome to tell me to just deal with it. Eventually, he said he put some thought. Okay, hold on. The fact that you're saying that he has an option to just tell you to deal with it, why are you saying that? Why are you giving him like this kind of now? It's like, if you don't like it, you can just tell me to suck it up. Why is this like an option? Why is this a dialogue option you're handing to Bob? I'm assuming it is Bob, right? Yeah, Bob. Why are you handing this dialogue option to Bob in the first place? What is the point for it? I mean, I understand, let's say, for example, if you want to have your feelings be heard, but I would think it would be some sort of a purpose to try to find an understanding together, right? I mean, I guess I could tell you guys I've had a feeling in my tummy all day that I need to fart, and I just farted. So there you go. That's useful information. I just wanted to express it. But I feel like it would kind of also be counterintuitive, because unless I'm bringing this up and addressing with you to try to resolve something or try to find some sort of solution, understanding or something, I mean, if I have to address anything myself, I don't know, like maybe I'm just different. Maybe I'm just different. Maybe I don't see, expressing feelings in this kind of way in order to find some sort of solution. Maybe a more problem-oriented kind of individual. Maybe that's what I see. You know how people have like different letters? They use like INFJ for the personality types. Maybe my personality type is to try to express something, to try to find a solution. Otherwise, I don't express it as well, and I just keep it bottled up all day. I don't know. I have no idea what kind of personality am I. Somebody run a personality test on me and tell me what sort of funny, silly letters I am. But the fact that you're giving your DM this kind of an out to be like, if you want to just be a jerk and say that, you can just suck it up, then you could just do that. Why are you giving your DM this kind of like an answer choice, like a telltale game? I am lost and confused over the intention of that. Maybe somebody in the comments can let me know why OP is doing that, because I'm lost. Eventually, he said he put some thought into how to address the table etiquette issue and asked me to reassure him that I still wanted to be his friend, which I assured him I did. Then he ghosted me for a week. I reached out to him a couple of times, he got no reply. Our weekday game got cancelled due to a couple of people running into issues, including him citing feeling very sick. So, sick of Bob being dramatic AF about a very simple issue and refusing to engage with me on it, I made the decision that I was going to drop this game. I also been invited to join Sven's game, and I've been playing in my partner's game. I told the group that I was dropping Bob's game, I wouldn't be joining Sven's after all, and I was genuinely on the fence about staying in the partner's game. I didn't call anyone out specifically, I just said I don't feel like I have a voice at the table, and I don't have it in me to fight to be heard. Gabby messaged asking what had happened, saying she didn't want me to drop out if the issue that could be fixed. Sven asked if he needed a session 0. Then Bob messaged saying, whatever it is, I'm sure we can work together to find a solution. I'm really excited to run my game and I miss you at the table. Okay, you sound like you have, even if you have some sort of complications with Bob and stuff, and Bob was being sick and ghosted you, I suppose. It sounds like you have a very welcoming table, and even Bob is, I don't know if he's gaslighting or lying and stuff, but even Bob sounds like I don't know why else he would write that specifically. I think he's just genuinely excited. I feel like there's a huge communication issue going on, but hopefully things are resolved. There's still plenty of paragraphs I haven't read ahead, but let's see what happens. I lost my temper. Bob had a meltdown in my private messages 4 days before ghosting me for a week and told me that he was canceling his game altogether. This is how he acts when other people can see. I didn't handle it well, but also didn't handle it as badly as I wanted to. All I said was, where was this energy when I messaged you privately? And then I left the group chat. My goal was to make sure everyone knew he was the reason and force him to have to explain it. It didn't work. He refused to explain anything to them. I gotta be honest, you sound really bitter. Like, maybe you have a reason to be bitter, but I feel like there was a better solution than just to be like, where was this energy before you left and leave? Aha, he's gonna have to explain everything now, and I don't have to explain anything. I'm just gone. Explosions behind me, stepping away. Like I said, you lost your temper, so I'm sure that, emotions were pretty high and stuff, and you weren't really thinking clearly or maybe reasonably, but I just don't see how this resolves anything. You get to go out with a bang, I suppose, and leave the group chat, and everybody's like, oh, the player left. What happened? What's going on? Does Bob know something? Because I'm sure maybe everybody's confused. I got a question. Have you talked to the other players about this issue to see what they think? Or is this just being reacted on like an impulse? Not to be offensive or anything. God forbid we be offensive on here. But have you talked to the other players to see if this is like is this maybe an alternative, better solution to address this instead of just dipping and and leaving. You know, I don't know, guys. Am I being bigoted for asking these kind of questions? Am I a bigot for using they, them? This story is a huge can of worms, and I feel already sweating just getting through this because this is a lot to handle. Over the next couple of weeks, my partner and I met with the rest of the group, giving a very abbreviated overview of the situation. Universal sentiment of, oh yeah, that's just how Bob is. We just kind of put up with it because he's our friend, but I totally get why you wouldn't want to. Bob volunteered to drop out of my partner's game, so I'd feel more comfortable staying. I dropped Bob's game and didn't join Sven's. My partner attended Bob's game on their own, came back afterwards telling me I was right about everything, and now they can't unseal the glaring problems because now it's their turn that's being used as the free-for-all Q&A session. Okay, so looks like things are being resolved. I hope things have been resolved. There's still a lot more. Let's keep going. A few weeks later, out of game, I shared a political post on Facebook and Justin commented. I don't want to go into the full details, but essentially Justin is a cisgender, heterosexual, white Christian man, and he hates the idea that people exist who are more oppressed than him. He came onto my post for spreading misinformation about certain policies. Then after I corrected him with credible sources to back myself up, he attacked me for pointing out the ways that transgender people are being targeted and the way that female-bodied people are being targeted. Female-bodied people? Okay, maybe I'm gonna show my ignorance here, and I apologize, but dare I say this, do you mean by female-bodied biological women, you know, with biological female bodies? I don't know if that's bigoted of me to say, but I'm just trying to make sure I understand the big picture here. He cussed me out, called me names, and informed me that any danger I was in was made up, whereas he had real worries, such as knowing people on Medicaid who would die if they lost their coverage. He then blocked me on Facebook and messaged my partner saying that I was toxic and refused to deal with me. I showed my partner and the rest of the group the full exchange. They're all on my side and agreed that Justin was incredibly out of line. For Sven and my partner, that was the last straw for Justin because they already didn't like him because he metagames, talks over people a lot, and has a nasty case of main character syndrome. Unfortunately though, Gabby had a medical condition that prevents her from driving, so if Justin isn't driving her to the game, she can't come. Pretty much the only reason they put up with him for so long was for her sake. I mean, if Justin is really that bad of a person at the table and stuff, yeah, I don't see a reason. I don't know why Facebook and Facebook conversation and stuff got into it. I don't know. But whenever any sort of like a political or mainstream or any kind of modern deism topics and conversations come in, I don't know about y'all, but I put blinders on. I just put blinders on because I just want to play my fantasy RPG. It's not that I want to ignore the real world. I just want to get immersed in my fantasy RPG escapism for a little bit, so I don't have to worry about IRL for a tiny bit, because fantasy is nice. IRL isn't. I mean, yeah, basically. But if Justin's being a horrible person and just bad person at the table with bad manners and stuff and main character syndrome and talks over people, yeah, that's definitely something that should be addressed regardless if he has given somebody a ride or not. So now Sven is starting a new game with me. So now Sven is starting a new game with just me, my partner, and Matt playing. The table feels very empty. My partner's game is over, Bob's game is over, Sven's original game is over. We're looking into possibly trying to recruit some new players at a local game shop, but it's hard because any new players have to be LGBTQ friendly, and this is not the most LGBTQ plus friendly area. So I may have accidentally destroyed my partner's group because I wasn't trained to look past the problem behaviors that everyone just kind of accepted because that's just how he is. My partner Sven, Matt, none of them are blaming me, so I feel a bit better about the situation, but it still sucks. There we go. I feel like... Okay, so let's break it down a little bit. The initial confrontation, the initial issue was that they weren't being heard and people were talking over others. And they claimed that it was supposed to be DM and GM's job to basically make sure that everybody is make sure they're equally being heard. I feel like that is a lot of responsibility to lay onto the DM alone. And it's less of a DM-GM responsibility, but a table responsibility. We're all in this together, making sure that we are heard. Clap. Ooh, you know, that's kind of thing. I know I'm making a bunch of dumb jokes and stuff, but what I mean is genuinely what I mean. I feel like to make sure that everybody is heard at the table and people don't talk over each other, it should be a group effort, not a single person's effort. Because, like, what are we in kindergarten. We're not a kindergarten. You don't have a teacher that's, you know, trying to be like, all right, class, calm down, class, and everything. I feel like everybody should kind of come together and talk over each other in some capacity. Actually, yeah, I prefer this way. Somebody told me a really funny way to do things. Just do the American way. Talk over each other. That's the polite way to do things at this point. And it's kind of like that at my table, but we sort of kind of manage each other and we kind of have all of us communicate together and kind of like, you know, simmer down if need things be, you know? I feel like it is indeed a group effort. Obviously, DM should still be responsible and should still be making sure that everybody, you know, everybody is properly heard and people don't talk over each other and everything. So of course, it is indeed Bob's problem for going on a 10 to 20 minute tangent. That is not okay. That's definitely not, should not be okay. However, it's not a single person's responsibility to make sure that everybody at the table can talk well and play well together. It should be a group effort because we're all adults here. We're not in kindergarten and the DM is the teacher at the front desk saying, simmer down, children. Second of all, I feel like maybe the way you address things with Bob, until we see the actual DMs, I just don't know what was actually being said. You could have, on one hand, gave the most reasonable feedback, the most reasonable criticism ever, and you were being extremely constructive and extremely welcoming and cordial and stuff, and maybe Bob overreacted. Or you went a little bit mean, you went a little bit extra, you went a little bit extra spicy potentially, and maybe passive aggressive, and gave something that just literally rattled Bob's nerves, and maybe Bob is just a nervous wreck and has some sort of anxiety problems and thinks that he is like doing really, really bad when he thinks he's doing rather okay. Hi, Editor Morrow stepping in for real Morrow. Don't worry, I'm imaginary. Either way, I wanted to cover this part here because in the video itself, I start talking about maybe Bob is a very anxious person. We know that he's an anxious person. You specifically in your story mentioned some of the stuff. Let me read some of the quotes from you verbatim. The first one was saying how bad he felt that I was feeling this way and say he didn't want anyone in his table to feel ignored shows that he actually maybe cares. And then follows up with, next thing we were talking about how he has so much trauma and PTSD from past experiences. And then you mentioned, tell me he was physically ill and unable to sleep until the issue could be resolved. Still emphasizing his own mental health issues, the physical effects that it was having on his body. He brought up a past argument we had regarding his treatment of trans people, an argument that I had thought was resolved. Even going as far as to say how he lost all motivation to even run the game. He was thinking of canceling the game. This sounds like a person that is anxiety riddled that needs general professional counseling and help. This doesn't sound like a bad guy per se. Like he should have let you, like he should have gotten through your turn and shouldn't go on like a 10 to 20 minute tangent with another player. Completely understandable. But he doesn't sound like a bad guy. He sounds like a decent guy or an okay guy, potentially okay guy that just messed up in the moment. It sounds like he's just really anxiety riddled when it comes to interacting with you. I don't know. Maybe he just anxiety, you know, anxious with everybody like that, but potentially maybe him talking to you and trying to accommodate you is just very anxiety inducing for him because he's just trying to do his best and his best is not good enough. And perhaps, unless we see the DMs, perhaps there's some things in the way you present your criticism that wasn't constructive. Maybe perhaps you went a little more too passive aggressive, a little bit too spicy, a little bit too hot on his heels just for no reason. Potentially this is a communication problem. But also at the end of the day, let's remember in your own story, he volunteered to drop out of your partner's game so you'd feel more comfortable staying. The guy literally was going to shuttle the entire game just because a single player wasn't feeling great about it. He was going to close the entire game. You know what Bob could have done if he was a jerk? He said, you know what, suck it up. If you ain't going to speak up on my game, get the hell out of my game. Who cares? Whatever. But the fact that he even volunteered to drop out of your partner's game so you'd feel more welcoming and accommodating, that's just not a quality of a bad guy. Good people do bad things too, but they don't do it with intention to do something bad. You know, they generally don't seem like they're doing it with intention. It sounds like an anxiety-riddled guy that he even mentioned the fact he has PTSD and trauma. He probably has a lot of anxiety. He has a lot of things to go through. Maybe he just worried you're gonna make another TikTok on him because you thought you guys' conversation was fine, and suddenly you go on TikTok and blast the guy for everything else. So he's probably thinking, oh, maybe the conversation didn't go good. Maybe I'm a horrible jerk of a guy. Maybe I'm a horrible bigot or something, even though he probably isn't. I don't know. In conclusion, let's talk about a little bit about the aspects of the story. Is Justin a problem player? Yeah, is anybody that interrupts everybody else at the table or is involved in main character syndrome stuff and can't change themselves whatsoever? Yeah, it's definitely a problem. If the group feels uncomfortable with the interaction from Facebook from Justin, if they want to part from him, whatever, that's completely up to the group to decide. That's a group thing to decide, not up to the DM to decide and everybody else to decide. It sucks that you're going to be losing a player, but it is what it is. Facebook conversations, not related because, well, I mean, I don't know, man. Anybody that I know that argues on Facebook are probably not usually easy people to be around because they mostly focus about arguing people on Facebook instead of playing funny little escapism games. I don't know, man. He just kind of rubs me the wrong way, and I've had interactions with people that are way too engaged in Facebook debates. I just don't really associate with them, and whatever. They could do whatever they want. Not my cup of tea. I couldn't care less about any sort of Facebook debates. Couldn't care less about social media drama whatsoever. Is Bob a bad person? I think he's a decent guy that did a mistake, and he's trying to atone for it. I mean, he's even going out of his way to not only shutter his Pathfinder game because one player is feeling unwelcome, but he's also willing to remove himself from another game that he is part of just to make you feel uncomfortable, OP. But is he a bad guy? Is he a bigot? I don't think he is. Yes, there's definitely issues with raving to another player for 10 to 20 minutes about a mechanic of Pathfinder or something with Pathfinder, or to jumping in and skipping a player's turn and stuff. But it's not just a Bob only issue. The first one was Bob and Sven. Next was Bob and Justin. So two people are in the wrong with this, not just Bob. At the end of the day, it shouldn't, the onus should be just on Bob to fix everything. He's not some sort of a god. He's just another player that's playing the DM/GM role. Should he be more accommodating and make sure that he's, you know, keeping up with everyone's turns? Yes, but it's a responsibility for the entire table, not on Bob alone, to make sure things are going for it. That's like how it works for that in my table too. If, let's say, for example, I'm a little bit off track, players know how to get me back on track to make sure we can stay on it. If another player is interrupting another player, somebody speaks up, we all speak up and try to make sure that we all stay in communication. Communicating at the table and working great as a party or as a group of people that want to just play well together is important. You got to make sure that everybody can speak up and everybody can be participating in the conversation that is going on at the game and at the table, and not just waiting for the DM to just make, you know, wave the magical wand away and to fix everything. Like, at the end of the day, we're not a kindergarten. We're all adults playing TTRPGs and stuff. We shouldn't have a problem speaking up and saying, hey, excuse me, can I finish my sentence real quick? I just don't want to be interrupted. Is that cool? Cool. You know, is Bob a bigot for saying they, them, general neutral pronouns? I mean, if you're saying that Bob is a bigot, then I guess you can just say that Mary is a bigot. I'm a bigot. Mike is a bigot. All my friends from VR chat community and D&D and stuff, like everybody that play D&D with, are all bigots because we all at some point inadvertently end up using they, them, general neutral pronoun when we don't know someone's pronoun and stuff. So we just refer to them as they, them. And if you tell me that Mary is a bigot because she uses they, them, I'll literally hellish rebuke the hell out of you. Mary is literally the nicest person ever. She is the nicest girl that I've ever known ever. She could never do, like, even if she tried to be mean, she couldn't. She doesn't have a mean bone in her body in the slightest or whatsoever at all. Unless she's teasing, yeah. But even then, she has no capacity for doing anything mean or bad towards anybody in the slightest, at least not on purpose. Mary, myself, Micah, we all have friends from VR chat and even outside of VR chat that are trans, and sometimes it's just easier just to use a they, them, gender neutral pronoun when we don't know the specific pronouns. And you know what? People even use they, them on me. Mary calls me a they, them sometimes. Do I find her offensive? Do I think she's a bigot? No, because it's just the default response. We're so used to this being a general default like pronoun that we just jump into. Even in this video, if you notice it, I have inadvertently, without meaning to, on autopilot, used a they, them. And probably that's what happened with Bob as well. Even in your own story, you mentioned about the fact that as you talk about your partner's ex and how Bob uses a they, them, and Bob didn't realize it, and he said you try to do better, probably because Bob didn't realize that as well. He just went on autopilot mode and just used they, them because it's the most gender neutral, most welcoming, most non-confrontational, most not offensive term you could possibly give to somebody for pronouns and stuff. And if Bob really wanted to be offensive and really wanted to be transphobic or some sort of a bigot, I'm sure there's other things that Bob could say to really come off as some sort of transphobic bigot. But they, them, gender neutral pronouns, the safest option possible to try to stay as the most accommodating and welcoming as possible, I just don't think that's it. I feel like you're picking a fight here that doesn't need to be picked, and you take an offense where there really should be no offense whatsoever. Maybe it's a bit pedantic, or maybe it's a little bit picky of you. That just, I gotta talk about UOP as well. I feel like, yeah, Bob addressed, Justin addressed, but I feel like I have a little bit of bone to pick with you a little bit too, OP. Your specific response to Bob after you bring up the initial thing is to say, oh, Bob, you could have just told me to just kick rocks and suck it, and that would have been okay. Would have been okay? Why'd you give Bob such a toxic out? It's as if you're trying to pick a fight for no reason with the guy. He's clearly anxiety-riddled. Clearly, you could tell from the way he expressed himself and the way he said he has PTSD and trauma and stuff. He clearly needs help. Clearly, he's very anxious guy. Instead of working with him, it's like you're working against him, expecting just to wave his magical wand around and just do miracles away. Or you may be upset with him for not doing things specifically your way. Yes, it could suck, sure, but I'm sure through proper communication, you could probably find some sort of understanding with the guy so that he can maybe make a, I don't know, a little footnote for himself to just don't use a they, them or something. But no, instead of giving him an out saying, you could just tell me to go suck it, Bob, and that'd be okay. I don't think it would be okay in the slightest. You sound like a very bitter individual that unless things are going your way, you just gotta blow up or you just gotta do something passive aggressive and just get out of your way. Because even in itself, like saying, you can just tell me to suck it and that'd be okay, sounds either passive aggressive or like confrontational, just antagonistic. It just sounds antagonistic. It has a venom. It has a tip on the tip of the venom is just there, you know. Vague posting in Discord about Bob as well. And whatever Bob tries to show, you know, being welcoming, saying he's welcome, he's very excited to have you back at the table. You say the way he said, what was this energy when I messaged you privately, and just left the group chat without explaining it to anybody. Have you talked to the other players about this prior to this? I kind of feel like you didn't. I feel like you didn't talk to any of the players about this before to maybe see if maybe you're overreacting or something. I don't know. I feel like you're very impulsive. You're very impulsive. And unless things are going your way or your issues are directly being addressed immediately or quickly, then suddenly it's a problem for everybody else. And it has to be everybody else's problem. And Bob is a bigot. When you mentioned Bob was ghosting you, maybe it's because he was just so anxiety riddled and he didn't know how to respond because he knows you're probably gonna make a TikTok about him, just ranting about him to your 5,000 something viewers and stuff. And you're just so anxious about it because that has been an issue before, as you brought up in your very own story, where you do go on TikTok and blast your quote-unquote friends or DMs and stuff and talk, you know, talk shit about them to your internet nobodies that follow you. Maybe that's why he ghosted you. Maybe he wasn't ghosting you. He was just so anxiety riddled and didn't know how to respond because he knows the way you talk to him and he was just trying to navigate this as safely as possible and literally had no idea of what to say in that specific moment. And last but not least, and I'm not going to harp into it too hard, I've read through this RPG horror story multiple times just so I can like fully absorb it. This was a long read, and I went through the comments, and I have to be honest, OP, you sound like a very bitter and, dare I say, self-centered person where the only issues that matter are your own and everybody is wrong and you can't be in the wrong in the slightest. It's not just what you respond, but the way you respond and the way that everybody is in the wrong and everybody is wronging you and stuff. And there's nothing that you can do on your part and everybody else has to change around you. Those specific type of responses you've given to some of the people here, you sound selfish, you sound bitter, and perhaps this is just because it's coming off of like a cooling off period. You did mention earlier that you lost your temper and maybe things are a little bit too heated right now with the whole conversation and you're kind of on the roll right now, but I hope at some point you reflect back on the situation and on the messages and maybe kind of realize that maybe you're going a little bit too hot here. Maybe things were said that shouldn't have been said, or there was a better way to approach things, because gotta be honest, your responses on your Reddit are very heated, extremely heated, and extremely blaming towards everybody else except you. Now, there could be a possibility that maybe everybody else in your life is indeed a bigot and your table is full of bigots and stuff, and you just stomaching all these bigots as best you can. But your story says otherwise. And with that, that's going to be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.